These talks are looking at this idea of not to, or a message of not to. In your experience right now, there would be a subject and an object. And you would be taking to be the subject of all the objects around you. So inherently, that's not a problem. Yeah, there's nothing wrong or something with this subject-object relationship. It's just that the feeling of being the subject is what's put into question when you approach a message like this, because it's saying not to, or non-duality. So it's saying you're not the object. So what's being perceived, you are not. Yeah. And then you can also perceive the subjectivity. Let's say your thinking. Yeah, or your sense of being the body. That can be perceived. So it's like there's something before that. Yeah, there's something ever present which the coming and going seems to move through. So in the movement of not to, rather than trying to purify what's moving, it's negating it, to see that you're already there before it. Yeah. So this is kind of like the simplicity of it in a way. Is the subject that you take yourself to be is not subjectivity. In a way, it's a false subject. So what's seeing and then giving interpretation or claiming everything that's being seen would not be your true nature, let's say. That false seeing would be arising within seeing. Or let's say the seer, the sense of being the seer would rise within the seeing. Yeah? Because when you look at something, your head is interpreting what it's looking at, and it's sort of making it into like a thing. So let's say this lighter here, yeah, as soon as my head sees that, it calls it a lighter and determines that it's a lighter in a way. Yeah. So without further investigation, I would take myself to be that interpretation. Because why else wouldn't I, yeah? Everything ever has told me that I'm the thinking, that I have to make the thinking better. And when the thinking does something which is perceived as uncomfortable or bad, then that's my fault. Yeah. So without investigation or hearing a message like this, you would have no reason to dispute that, essentially. But what non-duality is saying is you're not that sense of individuality who that interpretation is arising to. Yeah? They're saying that's a false God, essentially. Because like they would say in addiction recovery, your head is playing God with everything that's going on. As soon as something happens, the head interprets it, and then your head tells you that it's happening to you. It's placing a you there. So that sense of you in recovery would be called self, with a small s, not like Ramana Maharshi's big S self, but small s self. And then you're essentially under the command or the dictatorship of your thinking. So in recovery, obviously that hasn't gone that well because somebody's in addiction recovery. And addiction would be sort of a way to try to get away from the dictatorship of the thoughts, because they're super self-centered and they're very uncomfortable. And they're super separate from everything else, yeah. So they're very isolating. So this idea of not to is looking at that to-ness, subject or the perceived subject, yeah, that feeling of me, and then object. And it's not only saying that you're not the object, but you're also not that subject that's constantly being suggested to you. So maybe let's take a look, a reading from this little book I found at a store somewhere. Sayings of Ramana Maharshi. If you don't know Ramana Maharshi, that's fine. Ramana is like the very important Indian teacher as far as the school or message of non-duality would be concerned, yeah. Let's look at something here. Okay. So here's a saying from Ramana. The radio sings and speaks, but if you open it, you will find no one inside. Similarly, my existence is like the space. Though this body speaks like a radio, there is no one inside as the doer. So the radio sings and speaks. Yeah, we all know what a radio is and how sound moves through a radio, yeah? But if you open it, you will find no one inside. So this would be the investigation of self-inquiry. Yeah? If you open a radio, there's nothing inside which is seemingly making sound. Yeah? There's no person there that's speaking. Oh no. And similarly, in your experience, when you go and investigate who all of these thoughts, emotions, and things are arising to, you don't find something. There's a sense of I, there's a sense of me, who all this is arising to, yes? Now that sense is what's brought into the courtroom, you could say, as far as self-inquiry goes. Is that sense a thing? Who am I, yes? What is this I? Because the I is at the basis of all of your experience. Now in spiritual searching or seeking, people are really looking to change the experience, but they're not looking at who it's arising to, which would be the root of the suffering. The experiences would just be experiences moving through. Yeah? So that would be like the radio singing and speaking moving through space. And there's no one inside. So it's like Ramana would say, the you that you're trying to improve doesn't exist. There's no thing called I or me inside the body. It's an identification of the head. It's an idea. Yeah? Or we could even say a belief. So similarly, my existence is like the space. So he's saying that his existence, or the existence, or the ground of being, is like the space that the sounds and the voices are moving through from the radio. Yes? So which would not be body bound. So it would be inside and outside of the body. It would be everywhere. Ever existent. Yes? So it would be like, yes, limitless. Pervading would be the word that I would probably hit on. Pervading. What you are is pervading. The ground of being is pervading. And there's a bunch of stuff moving through that. Thoughts, emotions, ideas, whatever's moving through. Sound, the world, yeah? And now, as the world moves through, one of the things that moves through your existence is the mind. The thinking mind. The small m mind. That mind is interpreting everything. It's giving everything all of the meaning it has. The world doesn't have any meaning until the head grabs it and puts meaning on everything. Yeah? This is often what binds us, because you're only getting one radio station through your head. It's the radio station of you, and that's giving meaning to everything through what you've experienced in the past. Yes? So it's like the Course in Miracles would say, you're only seeing the past. Because whatever's been presented to the head through the life in the past, that's how the head sees the world, yeah? And now if we're tied through identification to what that head is saying, that head is playing God. Not only with the world, but with you. So everything that the head says, you take to be your thought, yeah? Because one of those thoughts or beliefs is that all of these thoughts are arising to me, I, yeah? And this is what's being disputed in this, is that false subjectivity. There's a sense of I for sure. There's a sense of subjectivity. And what this is saying is there's nothing there. It's another idea which is moving through existence, just like Ramana said in this quote. Though the body speaks like a radio, there's no one inside as the doer. So as this body speaks like a radio, there's things moving through, thoughts, ideas, yes, inspirations, emotions, like we were saying, sensations, sounds, stuff from the outside. Now, there's no individual doer thereof. It's a quote of the Buddha. So there's no I inside of this. There's no thing that we could call self inside of this which is doing. Yeah, it's an arising. It's a phenomena moving through space, we could say. If you have questions or something, please write in the chat, because that will... it's important to ask, yeah. Otherwise, the head spins on these concepts, and your head tries to grab no thing, and the mental system can't grab no thing. It can only see things. Yeah. So the real kicker is that there's no problem. Yeah. And you are what you're looking for, as they would say. Yes, you are already what you're looking for. But there's something inside which doesn't feel like that. let's say the mental process, definitely doesn't feel like that. It feels depressed, it feels happy, it feels anxious, it feels this and this. It definitely doesn't seem super blissful, existence, consciousness, bliss, no? Yeah, so what we're identifying as, which is all of that thinking and movement, might be a misidentification, because all of these things say that you are what you're looking for. Existence, consciousness, bliss. Now, when I studied yoga, a lot of the stuff that was studied would say that essentially you're not going to get there in this lifetime. Actually, it could take 100 lifetimes or eons or something to understand it. Yes? That's not good news for somebody in addiction recovery, because they're already suffering quite a bit. Yeah. Now, this message is different. This is a different idea. Yeah. This is saying you are what you're looking for. So what's trying to understand this not two-ness is two-ness. And the two-ness is never going to get not two-ness. It can't do it. The mental system is only a two. It's a dualistic experience. Yeah. That's it. That's all it can do. It can't do backflips. It can only walk forward, let's say. Yeah. So thinking that we're going to purify it through spiritual practice to make it do backflips isn't so much going to work, no? Because it can't do that. Yeah. It's like trying to make a plane go backwards. That's not what it's built for. The mental system is only built to experience two-ness. So a lot of spiritual practice, which people completely then identify themselves with as a spiritual practitioner, this message would put that whole identification into question. Yeah. Because essentially, when it comes to the message of not two, what we're identified as in the mental system is never going to get it. You can't get the message, which is the beauty of it. Which is why it's approached through negation, not affirmation. It's not like you're going to work super hard to become what you already are, but you are, because you already are it. So what would be more eventful, or let's say, what's the word? What would be much more efficient would be to negate what is telling you you're not what you already are. Which would be mind, body. Yeah? And primarily this sense of I, who all of this is arising to, would be investigated in. And it's not hard to see that the mental system is off. It's never thinking about what's going on. And if it is, it's misinterpreting it, yes? Even when the head listens to a talk like this. A lot of people will sign into this talk when I'm speaking right here, and they'll see that what's getting put into question is the identification of what they are, and they vamoose quick. Because the head doesn't want to do that. The mental system does not want to, it's not going to want to see its own part to play in a way. And that's where it gets misled. Yeah. So a lot of times people show up to a talk like this and they see that they're not going to get anything. What thinks it's going to get a bunch of stuff in this approach is getting negated. Yeah, because you are what you're looking for. You are what you're looking for. So a lot of times the head then just goes, oh, whatever, this stuff's crazy or this stuff's not true, without any investigation. It's just totally wiping it off, yeah? And then they disappear or whatever. But it's just important to see why that's happening. Because the mental system wants to get something, but you are what you're looking for already. So all of this trying to obtain by the mental system is probably what's diverting you from sitting in the experience, quote unquote, for lack of a better term, of what you are. It's very aggravating for some people because the head identifies as a spiritual seeker. And when I mean identifies, I mean all identification is put on being a spiritual seeker. And someone like Ramana then says, you are what you're looking for, yes? You're always there as yourself. All of the seeking and things get put into question. Because all of that seeking would be, if there's seeking happening, spiritual seeking, that seeking is seeking something. Let's say a sought. Yes? It's looking for something. So the message of this not to is that you are what you're looking for. So whatever is seeking the sought would not be you, yes? Because if you are what you're looking for, you wouldn't be seeking, obviously. So what's seeking is what we're misidentified as, which is playing God as far as the language of recovery might be concerned. The head is playing God. I'm not free. I'm never going to be free. This is always going to be like this. These people suck. These people are great. I'm going to go here. This is beautiful. On and on and on and on and on. Yeah. Yeah. So this body would be like a radio with the things moving through, but when you open up the radio, there's nothing there. Yes. There's pieces and things, but there's no inherent thing we could call the being of the radio that you can pick out. Yeah. Same in this body, in all of these bodies. Yes. So again, if you have questions or something you want to share, please write in the chat. So this is really, this is a big relief, because if you're not all the chattering in your head, that means you can be free from that chattering. Yeah. If you were if you were the mental system, that would be really bad news. And this is, yeah, for many years, my life, I felt that I was the mental system. So when my head presented depressive thoughts, I thought they were my thoughts, yeah? So now I'm bound to being the owner of those thoughts and the doer of those thoughts. Now what happens when that happens is there's a sense of discomfort, obviously, but what comes after that is now I want to get out of those thoughts. But what I'm identified as is those thoughts. And those thoughts, the thinking, the mental system, which we could call self, small s self in recovery, can't get out of self. So every time that I would try to get away from it, I would actually be reifying those, that position that I'm putting myself in. And I couldn't get out of it, yes? So drinking would become the option, obviously. Because drinking would black out the discomfort, at least for a period of time. Obviously, it doesn't last, so that would be not that effective. And it comes with a bunch of bad effects, yeah? So there was no sense that I could be free from. I thought I had to be free as. So then years and years of spending trying to purify or make the head think perfectly, compassionately, non-judgmental. It doesn't work because the head is inherently judgmental. It's a judgmental system. That's how it survives as an individual in the world, yeah. It's not going to become non-judgmental. I don't see how a system which is based in two-ness, subject to object, is going to become non-judgmental when the whole baseline of its existence is judgment. Yes? So everything that the head would present me is taken to be me because the head is saying that I'm the one doing it and thinking it and who it's arising to. And now I'm bound to what's arising. And now essentially the head is driving. And the head is very erratic. Thinking and interpreting is super erratic. Yes, it doesn't take a lot of analysis to see how erratic it is. You could be walking down the street and it's thinking about 2 weeks ago. Or it's forecasting how terrible something's going to be in a month. Mostly the head is thinking about what's not happening. Yeah? As Wei Wu Wei say, 99% of your thoughts are about a you that doesn't exist. Yeah, so it's rambling on, essentially. It's referencing the past, and then it's interpreting what happened, and it's interpreting what's going to happen. So this is like the play of time as far as the mental system is concerned. Yeah. What happened? It can't grab what's happening, so it's just going to push out beyond, it's going to push to the future, yeah, which is not happening. So this would be the head. So when that head is arising, if there's a sense that it's arising to you, then you're still bound to it as the doer, which is what Ramana is saying in this, yes? He's saying, though the body speaks like a radio, there's no one inside as a doer. Yeah, so this was like revelatory information. Because I thought I was doing all of this. And when I see that it's a habit pattern of thinking developed from past, that's a great relief in a way, because I can be free from it. Not by changing it or doing something else, yes? But because we are not it, yes? And most importantly, because it's not who we're rising to. We can observe the mind. The observer is not the mind. That's true, Luis, but being bound to being the observer would still have you as the observer of the mind, yes? So the mind, let's say small m mind thinking, let's just say that for lack of better language, thinking, and then there's an observer of the thinking. That puts you in a position of two-ness, yes? So this message is saying not to. If you're bound to being the observer of the mind, then you're bound to being the doer and the seer, the taster, the toucher, the feeler. Yeah? Yes, but when we ask who notices the observer? Yeah. So the mind arises. It arises to who? The sense of me. That would be the observer, yes? The I or the, yeah. So then who am I would be the question. That would negate that duality, the who am I. It's the subject asking the object and the object. These are both, in my experience, both the subject and the object come from the same thought system, obviously. There's not two thought systems, yeah? Two thoughts can't happen at one time. So a thought comes up, the head claims that it's your thought. That happens like bam, bam. Like doership is super, super fast. I don't really see how it's going to be beat. So the whole thing then would get negated. So to ask who notices the observer would be the same, hopefully if I understand what you're writing here, the same reference as who am I. Yeah, would be a sitting with the I, or the sense of observer. The thing that gives it away when you write it is observer. There is no There is no self, like in Buddhist theory, they would say, yeah? There's no self in the center of all of this. There's just action. When they say self in recovery, if you come from recovery, small s self, it's not a thing, it's a movement. Your head is constantly presenting interpretations and ideas, and it's constantly presenting it as you, the observer, let's say. The one who is seeing all of this. Not to is negating that one who's arising. So we don't get obsessed with what's arising, but you stick on who it's arising to see if that's true. Develop a more flexible idea of the one who sees. The thing is, there's no one who sees. There is no one in the middle of it who sees. There's a sense of individuality. There's a sense of I, which all of this arises to. That sense is what is negated here. Yeah? So the sense, if it becomes more flexible or not, doesn't matter. You're still there. It's like I've met a ton of people over the last bunch of years who have done like a ton of meditation retreats or a ton of ayahuasca or something, yeah? Like 15 years of ayahuasca. They know everything about their past. They know their emotions. They know their psychological past. They know their ancestors' past. They know it all, yes? But the issue is that they know it. There's a sense that they're there to know it. That sense has you bound to what's arising. Yeah? So, in my experience, a more flexible idea of the one who sees is not effective because there's no one who sees. It's still in ideas. It's still caught in the mind, which would still have us bound to what's arising. Yeah? It doesn't matter how flexible the yogi who's doing the splits is. If the yogi who's doing the splits thinks that they are the one who is there doing the splits, they're bound. They're bound to what arises in the body, essentially. Yeah, they're bound to the outcome of the body. And for me, that doesn't work because there's not freedom there, yes? This is like when people are in addiction recovery for 20 years, and then all of a sudden the head presents the idea that they can go have a drink. If they're not seeing that they're not that arising, or they're not there, If they're not seeing that self, that's a presentation of self and not them, they're going to drink because they're going to take it to know. They're going to take it to that thought to be theirs or arising to them. And as soon as they're bound to that thought, now they're liable to drink. You see? Yes and no, it depends how you perceive. This is semantics. Difficult to explain. There is no real self. Awareness that is present. Yeah, maybe. I don't really know. I can't. It's hard to tell from just writing. That's the kind of downside about insight. I can't see you or talk to you, yeah? There's a sense of individuality, which we could call small s self, yeah? There's no self, whether it's real or not. There's nothing there, yeah? Before thought, there's nothing there. It's a ground, or like Ramana says in this reading, he says it great. But if you open, the radio sings and speaks, but if you open, you will find no one inside. Similarly, my existence is like the space. The reference to space is very common. What you are is not space. The best you could put, I don't know what we are, but it's the sense of it is like space, essentially. But that's not it, but it's the sense. But if you read Tibetan Buddhism, they talk about space. If you read the Gita, they talk about space. If you read a lot of Advaita, they talk about space, yes? The sense of space. So, similarly, my existence is like the space. So he's not saying my existence is space. He's saying my existence is like the space. Real self, non-real self, there's no self in the center of it that it's arising to, yes? So some people would call that space ground of being or our true nature or Buddha nature or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Either way, it's not it. Whatever we say is going to be a concept, yeah? But this is all we have, concepts. So the important thing I feel is to say is that there's a fact and that there's no self in the center of what's going on. There's a sense of individuality. There's a sense of self, for sure. And this is not denying that. All it's doing is negating it, essentially. It's meeting it with an I'm not that. Yeah? So, yeah. So that space would pervade body and world. That space is ever present. The ideas of self and no self and real self and fake self, those come and go within that space. It's like in Chan Buddhism, they talk about a room with a bunch of furniture in it. If you take the furniture out, it doesn't change the space of the room, yeah? Same reference to the space. Or the innkeeper. The innkeeper, people come to the inn and they leave the inn, but the innkeeper never leaves. So the innkeeper in that metaphor would be like the space that everything's moving through. What happens when the head hears this message, it claims it. And then the mental system goes, I'm the one. I'm the space, yeah? That I'm the space needs to get negated. Yeah, which is tricky in a way, but not so much because you can see it, yeah? The head is constantly going all the time. So if there's the sense of being the one who perceives the thoughts or the one who's having the emotion, this is what's put into the courtroom here, into question. The one. Yeah. Because it's the one who's doing it or who it's arising to, which is causing all of the bondage to what's arising. Yeah. And the head, in my experience, is not going to stabilize. It's never going to become a pure head. Yeah. It's always going to be looking left and right, up and down, like, dislike, this, back and forth. It's a dualistic system, yes? There's a sense that is arising to me, and that's what's negated. That me would be considered that small s self, yeah, I. Ramana would say, don't leave the I. Don't step away and start going and chasing the left and rights. The ideas, the concepts. Yeah. Because mental understanding, in my experience, is very misleading. Because there's always seems to be the sense that I'm the one who's arising to. We can challenge the typical reasoning to try to go beyond the thought, beyond the concepts. We can challenge the typical reasoning. Typical reasoning. Yeah, I mean, if you look at your thinking, it's never about. If you look at your thinking, it's mostly about past and future. So, yeah, it doesn't take much to especially, I feel, for a recovering addict, to dispel that their thinking is off. Yeah, otherwise they wouldn't be drinking all the time, or drugging, or gambling, or whatever they're doing. Yeah, that's just a way to get out of the discomfort. But it's pretty easy to see that the mind is misleading. When I used to get super depressed, my head would flip. It would go from like elated happiness to really deep sadness within like 5 minutes. That doesn't have to happen that much for me to see that I'm not doing it. That I'm being done to, essentially. So it doesn't take that much effort, or it doesn't take any effort at all really, to see that reasoning doesn't seem to really work because it's dualistic, which is fine in this world. We need the head. It's the Heart Sutra. Yeah, gate. No eyes, no ears. But this message is not so much about the denying what's arising. Yes, it's just seeing that you're not. That's not your base nature or the ground of being. Yeah, that what's arising is not under your doing. If you're taking yourself to be doing depressive thoughts, you're bound to depression. Yeah, and then what happens? Yeah, I don't know. You can see, but there might be a pause there. You would be that pause. Yeah. That would be, let's say, the ground of being would be the pause. Does the mental system change? I'm not like I don't know for you. Yeah. All I know is that if I'm taking myself to be the mental system, I'm the one pouring gasoline on the fire, essentially. Because a thought is an instant movement. It's very fast. Yeah? Now, if I'm taking that to be my thought, I grab onto that thought, and now it's 1,000 thoughts. Yeah? Or 20 years of resentment. One thought, let's say. Yeah. It could ruin the week. One thought. Now, if a thought arises and I see it as an arising, and I see that it's not really arising to something, that the thing that's presenting itself as me is yet another thought, I'm not really going to want to grab onto that thought because I see that I'm not doing it. It's not really my business in a way. Yeah? In my experience, the thinking just turns down a lot. And beyond that, I don't really care, to be honest. So theory and a lot of stuff can just gets in the way because now the head tries to go and take me other places, which it's not really my business as far as that's concerned. Relief for like freedom would be the I don't know, the juice that gets poured on everything. So that's kind of like the beauty of it. No. Again, if anybody has questions or anything else to share, Heart Sutra is a beautiful sutra, yeah, but it's like you said, man, you're still stuck in semantics. The head gives everything all the meaning that it has. That would include Buddhism. That would include sutras. That would include Advaita. That would include the Vedas. That would include the Bhagavad Gita. None of those things have any meaning until the head grabs onto it. So to sit and talk about what we are wouldn't make sense because words can't grab what we are. But to sit and talk about what we're not would be very important because that's what gets negated. So as soon as the head starts to grab onto the Bhagavad Gita as the ultimate truth, the inquiry would be into who is giving the Bhagavad Gita the ultimate truth. What is that movement? Is that arising to me? Yes? Otherwise, I'm bound to being the knower of the Bhagavad Gita. And there's no freedom in the bondage of being the knower of the Bhagavad Gita. You're still bound to the individuality, which means you're isolated, which means there's a sense of separation which has got you. Because if you can know the Bhagavad Gita, that means you cannot know the Bhagavad Gita. And in my experience, the not knowing is coming around. And then what happens is the head says, you have to know more about the Bhagavad Gita. So now you're in for another 7 years of reading the Bhagavad Gita. Again, relearning, learning. The head is trying to grab no thing and it can't do it. Yes? It's like we were talking about a moment ago. If somebody does 15 years of ayahuasca and they know everything about themselves, but they're still there, tied to their past, hasn't done anything really. They just have a bunch of information, which honestly is harder to get away from, because the head is in the habit then of trying to understand everything, and what it's actually doing is misunderstanding and misleading. Interpretation, interpretations that the head is putting on things is not reality. Interpretations is not reality. Being ourselves reality. The idea is to use the Heart Sutra as a basis to take the leap into nothingness, and the space where has never been born but has never ceased to exist. Go beyond concepts. Sure, Luis, but you're beyond concepts already. You are reality. Yes. So what is taking the leap into nothingness is the sense of you, that you're going to take a leap into nothingness. Yes? You are already nothingness. So this is looking at negating what is talking about taking a leap. Because what's talking about taking a leap can't leap into nothingness. It can only leap into more duality, more knowing. Yeah. So as soon as my head is saying, okay, I'm going to take a leap, that ain't me doing that. Yeah. If I'm bound to the one taking a leap, I'm not going to make the leap. You are what you're looking for. Yeah. It's like Ramana would say, being ourselves reality, or ourselves being reality or something. Yeah. It's not becoming reality. So yes, the idea would be to use the Heart Sutras for sure, but the message is that you are what you're looking for. Yeah? So the one who's trying to use the Heart Sutra needs to be negated. That's what's put into question. Yeah. In a way, it's the beauty of it, because it's like a paradox. It's got us running. The Heart Sutra is not going to get individuality to nothingness. Individuality is not, this body is not going to become a not body. It can't do it. It's a body in the world. That's its purpose. And it's doing quite well when I leave it alone, yeah? When I get involved with it, that's when it gets super messy. Yeah. But the body and the mind are in the world. Yeah. So they're not going to become unworldly or get purified into some ultimate thing. This is the thing about spiritual seeking, is that if you are what you're looking for, what's doing the seeking is what has to be put into question. Because the seeking is never going to get to the sought. You are the sought already. Yes? So the seeking is really misleading. If we're identified as the seeking, then we're getting misled. You see? So this is why Ramana would say self-inquiry is really the only effective practice. I listened to a Swami once in Tiruvannamalai, and the Swami said any proper method should end the practitioner. And I thought that like really knocked me hard. It should end the practitioner. If a method like studying or meditating or something is reifying the idea of practitioner-ness, it's that practitioner is never going to become a not practitioner. It can't do it. The head is not do that. It's programmed as a dualistic thing. Yeah. I'm just presenting this how it worked. I tried the way of reading everything. And it doesn't work because the head can't get it. The head is what gets negated. The thinking comes up, great. I see the thinking, that is duality. I negate both of those and then see where you land. Yeah. This is because I got caught in the spiritual seeking. And man, that was uncomfortable as any other thing I've gotten caught in, including alcoholism, yeah. I can tell you from teaching yoga, the yoga world's wild. Yoga studios are wild places. I've seen more drama in whatever, how long I've been teaching yoga as I did being a professional musician in the music industry, yeah? Because the seeking has people bound up hardcore. And they're tied to the identity of being the seeker. And for something that's supposed to bring a lot of freedom, it sure brings a lot of suffering. Because there's that constant want to get free. What wants to get free is not you. That's what gets negated. Will it stop wanting to be free? Probably not, because it's really stuck in the idea that it's bound. But you're not doing that movement. And so that stuff has to get inquired into. And when that gets inquired into, you see the bare skin of the seeker. And then that drops off a lot of weight. A lot of people don't like that because they're identified as the seeker. Yeah, they're identified as the one who knows the space and who's going to get closer to the space. But that's a misleading of the mental system in my experience. There's whole businesses. There's what's wellness, like a multi-billion-dollar business, yeah? That business relies on you not being free. This message is a reverse. You are what you're looking for already. Yeah. So any practice or method that's approached, in the words of the Swami I was listening to, yes, any practice should only work towards ending that practitioner, because you are what you're looking for, yeah? So a practice should really only end the seeking, which is why Ramana says self-inquiry is the way, because you inquire into the seeker. Otherwise, you're getting run around. A lot of times, literally, you run around the world or run around to the many retreats or whatever, looking for freedom as what you're not. What's looking for freedom can't really be free, yeah? Self can't be helped in a way. It's a dualistic thing. It's caught in the world. So self-help really kind of doesn't work. It's like a funny take because self can't be helped. The head and the thinking can alter. You can become an engineer. You can work on depressive ideas and things, yes. But when it comes to a duality and not suffering and freedom, the head's not going to do it. It's not going to get it because it's in duality. It's in 1 and 2, and 1 and 2 goes back and forth. It's like a, what's that? Teeter-totter thing, yeah? Oh, this sucks. This is great. This sucks. This is great. And what's giving everything all of that meaning is the head. It's what the head does, in a way. Huh? So I feel it's very important to see that seeking, because that is the mental system in all of its glory of telling you that you're going to be free as it. It's a misidentification. It's such a relief. There's a lot of space there to breathe. Yeah, it's like the body can relax a little bit because the head gets put down. Yeah. There's a practice called soft butter method from Hokuin, which has helped me a lot, where it's just feeling butter go down through the body and just relaxing downward. And as soon as the body tension picks up or the head picks up, it gets negated. Yeah. And it's just relaxing into the whole body. And then you can really inquire into who am I or what's arising here. Yeah. Or who are all these thoughts arising to? From where do they come? From where do they come? And you just step back, and there you are, like behind a fish tank of thoughts in a way. Yes? Okay. If there's any other questions or something, please write in the chat. It's a beautiful message because it's not individual so much. So when somebody's asking questions, I'm not even really referring to the question. It's looking at the movement of what you're not. Yeah. So, it's so beautiful to see that that the voice in your head that's talking to you as you is not you. because you get a drop right away. The body gets a drop of relief right away. And if your head works like mine, where it's been very depressed and it's had all kinds of stuff go on, it's just such a drop, man. Yeah, all the weight of trying to change the head can get put down. And that's I don't know, that's like a new life, you know. Yeah, so any other questions or anything, please write. Yeah. The shoe, the the idea of not two might not fit for everyone. Yeah. But it's really, oh man. It's been so helpful. Yeah, it's been very helpful. Somebody ask something, or let's get a share or something that we can bounce some ideas off of here. You just put something in the chat, maybe. Because we've already read the Ramana thing, and we don't have to get too far into the reading. Good, and I don't like to end too early. There's another thing here maybe we could try. Both the wise... Here's another Ramana thing. Both the wise and the ignorant regard the body as I. Okay, so when your head says I, like, who are these thoughts arising to? Me. Yeah. Your head can only see you as a body, essentially, right? So you've been a body in the past, you're a body now, and you're going to be a body in the future. This is the observation of the head. So the I is essentially referring to you as a body, right? Okay. The ignorant, in the Indian literature, ignorance is used a lot, and in Buddhism, so ignorance would be like not knowing, essentially. The ignorant limit the I to the body. Yeah. So it would be a body identification which has you bound, essentially, is what this would be saying. So when something comes up, like you hear something, your head goes, I'm hearing that. Yes? Okay. That I is the body. Now, if we're identified as that I, which pretty much everybody is identified as that I, we're bound to the hearing. So now I like what I hear or I don't like what I hear. This is the head presenting an idea, and we're bound to that idea. This causes a lot of back and forth, and for many people, it causes a lot of isolation and anxiety. Yes? Okay. The ignorant limit the I to the body. For the wise, the self, big S self in this case, shines in the heart. Limitless, including the body and the world. So Ramana says the self, or what you are, resides in the heart. He says this a lot, but he's talking about space. So obviously it doesn't reside in the heart. But this is just language, yeah? So he says it resides in the heart. And it's pervading both the body and the world. So everything arises because of what you are, because of that space. Without consciousness, and nothing can really arise. But the things that arise, or consciousness doesn't need the things that arise to exist. So this is an important point. What you are doesn't need thoughts to exist. If there are no thoughts, you still exist, yes? As space, let's say, for lack of a better term, or as awareness. Awareness exists whether there's thoughts or not, whether there's a sense of being a thinker or not, yeah? Now, the sense of being a thinker and thoughts does not exist without the space of what you are. So what has true existence then is the awareness or the ground of being. Everything else relies on consciousness or the ground of being in order for it to exist. And so you could say that everything that appears within that space would be non-existent or unreal. Yeah? The only real thing which would have autonomous existence would be what you are as space. Everything else can be met as the unreal. Huh? So it's like asatoma sakamaya from India. Asatoma sakamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya. Essentially, relieve me from the unreal and take me to the real. This is saying you are the real. So how do we get from the unreal, which we're identified as, to the real? You negate what's unreal. Huh? Because being ourselves reality. You are reality. You are that space in which everything arises already. You can't become it, but you can negate what's arising in that space to have the attention put on the space rather than what's on arising. Because right now all of the attention is an obsession on the thoughts. You're not doing the obsession. The head is obsessed with itself. It's self-centered. Yeah. So how do we move from that obsession into what you already are would be to negate what's obsessed. Yeah? Which actually doesn't exist in the first place. There's no thing called I. Yeah, it's the unreal arising within the real. Bang. This would be the diagnosis in a way. You are identified as the unreal, but you already are the real. Yeah. So what's identifying as the unreal actually isn't you. It's a misidentification. So if you inquire into the I that everything arises to, it's seen in its true non-form as not existing. Yeah, it disappears in a way. And then it reappears, and then it disappears, and then it reappears. If something disappears and then reappears, that would be not two. Non-duality gets negated. There you go. Yeah. And this is the formula, in a way. So if you go back to what we were saying before, if the head is trying to get free through sutras and things, it's not going to do it. It can understand the ideas of it. Yeah? Sure, but that's not going to give you the release. The great release. Nisargadatta Maharaj, who's one of the most famous guys from this, hey Irene, could barely read, yeah? Barely read. And he's one of the most famous teachers of the 20th century. Could barely read. Ramana Maharshi only knew Tamil, so it's not like they studied. Nisargadatta did not study his way into freedom. He negated what he was not, and then there he was, as he's always been, as the space of awareness, let's say. Not the one who is the space of awareness, but space. Yeah, there is no one in the center of it. That would be identification as self. It's like a bike wheel has a spoke in the middle of it. So this is putting into question the spoke in the middle of the bike wheel to see its non-existence, to see its unreality. And then you are no longer bound to what comes and goes within reality because you're reality. You are unbound or unborn. Everything else is born, comes and goes within reality. Yes, that is seen as unreal in as much as it's not independent. It's just not independent. Yeah. So we can't get free as that. Because it's never going to be independent. Because that's not reality. You see? So we're taking the world to be reality. But this is saying that that's unreality. Reality comes before you in the world. And you are already that. You are already that. Not what arises in that. One. Shanti. Like questions or anything like that? Please write, yeah. You're not the one who has the question, but questions are helpful in many ways. As they say, there's nothing wasted in this this movement, in the world. Even if a question seems like thin or stupid, yeah, those are the best ones actually, because questions highlight what we're not. Yeah, questions highlight individuality, which arises within reality. Yeah. But it's good to highlight it because then you can see how it manipulates thinking and how it can cause a lot of discomfort in duality. Yes. So if anybody wants to write anything, please do. No? All right. Otherwise, I think we'll end here. I'll leave this thing open in case somebody does have a question. Also put my email in here in case somebody wants to write. Please feel free. And if you want to donate or something, if these are helpful, then please feel free. You can do it through here or through PayPal, whatever works. And yeah, maybe we'll do some more of these this week. I'm not sure what the schedule looks like, but I'll put something together. How to see, think others. Are we one self? How to see, think others. Can you expand on that, Hannah? Irene, I'm trying to follow the discussion, though at my level, there is some room for me to grow into this kind of thinking. Okay, great, Irene. Now, at my level, this is looking at who the idea of my level is arising to. You don't need to study or be at some level to understand this, because you already are what you're looking for, yeah? So, though at my level, there is some room for me to grow into this kind of thinking. This would not be a kind of thinking, it would be negating thinking, yeah? So, at my level, yes, that would be comparing to, let's say, my level from what's talking here, yeah? Notice what's in both of those is my. Otherwise, it's just level, yeah? So, if you were to sit down and feel you're inside your whole body, and then inquire into your body where that my is, that's all this is a talk. This whole talk is only about this. It's saying that my that you're identified as isn't inherently a thing in there. Yeah? But as that my, you're identified as the one who's on a lower level, you see? And you can write if this doesn't make sense. In a way it won't, but maybe it'll get close. Yeah? So it's your head that's determining you're at a lower level, let's say. Yeah. That would all just be mental movement. That's not so important. But the my is very important, yes? Because it's that my which has you tied to everything that the head is going to say. So whether you think you're at a high level or a low level, it's the my which is giving it all that meaning. Now, as I just said about Nisargadatta Maharaj, he had very low education, yes? So this is not about psychological ability or growing into a kind of thinking. This is negating who the thinking is arising to. Too customary to orient myself to what my circumstances of life have been. That could be true, especially... That could be true, but it doesn't put you in a seat of not being able to inquire into yourself. Yeah, it's just that the belief might be a little stickier. But maybe not. Maybe you sit down and inquire and these pops. Yeah? Too customary to orient myself to what my circumstances. So this is all the head. These are all ideas, yes? I'm bound. I have belief. I'm very oriented to the circumstances of life. This, and this. This is all the mental, yeah? All we're looking at is who is that arising to. That's it, yeah? You don't have to read any books. I'd rather you didn't, because the books will just confuse it, you see? Customize myself. I don't know how to say it. I mean, should we see all as one? Think that way more, even being individuals? Oh, okay, Hannah. No, I understand now. Where are you from? Somewhere cool? Finland, of course. Nice. Finland's got a great sauna culture. I had a friend go there for a while. Don't know how to say it. Should we see all as one? Okay. Has your head, I don't know how old you are, but has your head and these eyes ever seen all as one? Has that ever actually happened? Or have you ever chanted all is one, all is one, all is one, all is one enough that you've been able to see physically not everything all as one? Yeah. So the answer would be no, because that can't happen. Yeah. So the head cannot see all as one. It's dualistic. Yeah. My eyes, these physical eyes in the head, cannot see this lighter as one with them. They can't do it. Seer, seen, seeing. This is the trifecta of existence, of being in this world, let's say, yes? Should we see all as one or think that way more? You can think that way more, but this world is still going to be dualistic. Yeah? This flips a lot of people out, in a way. They think that they're going to purify their head to see all as one, and that the world is going to become a beautiful oneness. This world is dualistic. It's separate, in a way. That's the appearance of it. It's not reality. It's unreality. Yes? It's the head's interpretation, because the head is dualistic. So, even being individuals, yes? So, the head is never going to sit into seeing that one. What you are is not two already. Okay? So hopefully this is making sense. Because I don't think English is your first language, but that's okay. What you are is already not two. Yeah? So when the head is going, I have to see all as one, or I have to think that way more, that's not going to happen. Yeah? Because you're trying to make a dualistic thing not two, and that's not going to happen. It's a dualistic system, yeah? There's no way to try to beat it into submission. Right? It's like great masters who do crazy things. So where I grew up in Canada, Chogyam Trungpa was there for a long time on the east coast of Canada, yeah? Chogyam Trungpa was obviously sitting in a place of not two, although there was a lot of two-ness going on. He did a lot of crazy stuff, yeah? So the body and the mind are still in two-ness. That's not going to shift. Yeah. So it's looking at who is the one, who's the one that wants to see all as one? Who wants to think that way more? This message is seeing that and then hitting that with who am I, yeah? Because the want to see all as one and the want to think everything is one arises to a you, yeah? You want to feel that. You want to see that way. So what this is saying is what you actually are already is that. But what is the you that wants to see that way is what gets negated here. Because that you is taking you to be an individual. And a body can only see other bodies. Yeah, that's how it exists in the world. No problem with that. Yeah? But when the body really wants to become a not body and see everything as one, now that causes a lot of suffering because it can't do that. It's a dualistic movement, yeah? So the idea of you being the body here is what's getting inquired into. Just like we were just saying to Irene. Huh? Is that this isn't like a step thing. This isn't like a course or something. This is just looking at who is the one who wants all of this stuff to happen. Because maybe if you're identified as that, misidentified as that, that want is misleading and might mislead you for a long time until it's seen, yeah? Until you hear a message. Because I know the craving to want to see as one. You are already what you're looking for, yeah? So all of the fighting and the pushing and the spiritual practice and the on. I'm going to purify. I'm going to become this. I'm going to become this. I'm going to become this, yeah? That gets negated here. Because you already are what sees one. You are reality. Yeah? So the head can try to think its way into not two all at once. It's never going to get there. But you're not doing that thought. That's a habit. Yeah? There's discomfort. Let's say this is the cause of addiction. There's discomfort, and then there's a want to get out of this discomfort. That want to get out of discomfort causes tons of discomfort. Yeah, you're trying to, in a way, like Paul Hederman would say, you're trying to get out of what you're not in. And you're trying to get into what you're not out of. All it is, in my experience, is a misunderstanding. I had a misunderstanding. And then this thing slapped my head around enough that misunderstanding was corrected. And then what happens? The head still presents, yeah? I want to see everything as one. I'm sure you do, yeah? I'm sure you do. This is why, in a way, it becomes really funny. Individuality becomes funny because it keeps presenting like random ideas, yeah? Or core beliefs even sometimes. Those ideas can be shifted and stuff. I mean, we know that from psychology, but this is not, I'm not a psychologist, yeah, in any way. So the head can be shifted, but it's never going to see everything as one. That's not going to take place. And the want for that to happen can cause a ton of suffering as far as desire is concerned. Because there's a real heavy desire to want to see everything in a better light. It's very interesting, yeah. So that was a misunderstanding that I had. So it's good that you bring that up because that might be a misunderstanding. That what you're identified as is trying to get something that it can't get because you're already that before it. Nice. All right. Anyone else? Please feel free. Good, Hannah. Hopefully that was worth the price of admission, yeah? This is why it says it opens up a lot of space because that seeking, when your head starts saying, I want to see everything as one and I want to become this and I want to become that, you start to see that you're not doing that, yeah? And when you see that you're not doing that, that's a lot of weight that's lifted off your shoulders. That misidentification can cause a lot of craziness to happen. All right.